Types of depreciation.
What is depreciation? It is an accounting method that represents how an asset loses value over time. It is important because it helps businesses spread out the cost of an asset over its useful life. Then, this is also provides a more accurate picture of the company's financial situation and also matches the expense of using the assets with their income. The types of depreciation method is number one, straight line depreciation. It is a way to spread out the cost of an asset evenly over its useful lives. Every year, the same amount of depreciation is recorded. So the formula is depreciation expense equals cost minus salvage value divide useful life in years. In the example above, $25,000 is the cost, and you have to subtract the $0, which is the salvage value, and divide it by 8, which is the useful life. It equivalent to $3,125 per year. Double declining balance is an accelerated method of depreciation. It writes off more of an asset's cost in the early years and less in the later years. This method is useful for assets that quickly lose value. So the formula is periodic depreciation expense equals beginning book value times rate of depreciation. In the example above, the first thing you do is to calculate the depreciation rate, which is the formula expense equals 100% divide useful life of asset times 2. So it will be expense equals 100% divide 8 years of useful life of asset times 2, it's equivalent of 25%. Since this is a double declining method, we multiply the rate of depreciation by 2. So we have to multiply the rate of depreciation by the beginning book value to determine the expense for that year, which is there is a $25,000 times 25% is equals to $6,250 depreciation expense. And then you have to subtract the expense from the beginning book value to arrive at the ending book value, which is 25,000 minus 6,250 is equals to $18,750. It will be the ending book value at the end of the first year. And the year 1 ending book value of which is equivalent to 18,750 will be the year 2 beginning book value. So we have to repeat this until the last year of useful life. Units of production depreciation. It is a method where the depreciation expense is based on the actual usage or output of an asset rather than its time-based life. So the formula is depreciation expense equals number of units produced divide life in number of units times cost minus salvage value. So the calculation step is subtract the salvage value from the cost of the assets, then divide the depreciable amount by the total expected units of production, and then you have to multiply the depreciation rate per unit by the actual number of units produced in the period.
Annuity method of depreciation is a process used to calculate depreciation on an asset by calculating the rate of return just as if it were an investment. And also the annuity method of depreciation is referred to as the compound interest method of depreciation. If the cash flow of the asset being depreciated is constant over the life of the asset, then this method is called annuity method. So this is the formula of annuity. Annuity equals I times TDA times 1 plus I divide 1 plus I times N equals 1. So that is our formula of annuity. I equals interest rate percentage. TDA is equals total depreciation on amount. N is equals annuity number of years. And now, let's substitute the values. For example, I may equals 0.05, TDA equals 1,000, N is equals 12. And let's calculate the numerator. 0.05 times 1,000 times 1 plus 0.05 times 12 equals 0.05 times 1,000 times 1.795 equals 89.792. And now, let's calculate the denominator of n plus I times n minus 1. So, 1 plus 0.05 times 12 minus 1 equals 1.795. Let's divide the numerator by the denominator to find the final value. So, 89.792 divide 0.795 equals 112.86. So, 112.86 is the final value of annuity. So what is the depletion method of depreciation? The depletion method of depreciation is an accounting technique used to allocate the cost of extracting or exploiting the natural resources such as soil, gas, and minerals. Ang depletion kay ang pagkunhod or pagkahurot sa usa ka butang, just like sa pagkuha sa langis gikan sa yuta. And every time makuha ka, ang gas are getting smaller or nagkahurot, just like sa natural resources, kung always gamiton, magkahurot na siya until nga mawala. There are two types of depletion method, are cost depletion and percentage depletion. So what is cost depletion? Cost depletion is a method that allocates the cost of natural resources based on the number of units extracted, where the cost per unit is calculated by dividing the total cost of resource by the total number of units available. Example sa cost depletion, kung mupalit ka usa ka minahan nga gold, nag-cost of 1 million at tinataya mong makakuha ka og 10,000 ka gold, ang cost depletion kada gold ay 100 times 1 in divide 10,000 gold. So in just 1 year, the depletion expenses in that year ay 100,000 times 1,000 ka gold times 1,000 in a year. So mao na ang imuha nga cost depletion sa gold. So let's proceed the percentage of depletion. So what is percentage depletion? So percentage depletion is a method that allocates a fixed percentage of the cost of a natural resource to each period, based on the number of units sold or extracted during that period. For example, ang percentage depletion ay usa ka way na pag-commute sa pagkuha sa buwis or tax deduction para sa company na nagmimina o nagkuha og natural na yaman, just like sa gas, soil, and minerals. Another example, kung ang percentage na itinakda ng gobyerno ay 15%, ang earnings sa natural na yaman ay 100,000, so the company can claim 15,000 as depletion deduction.
The diminishing value method assumes the decline in a value each income year is a constant percentage of the base value of each year for the effective life of the asset, and therefore produce a progressive smaller decline in the item's value over time. The following formula is used to compute depreciation using the diminishing balance method. So, depreciation's expense equals net book value residual value times depreciation rate. So, in another term, the diminishing value method is a method of depreciation that allows you to claim a higher percentage of the asset's cost in the early year of its life and lower percentage in the later years. So let's proceed to number 7. The sum of the year's digit depreciation. The sum of the year's digit method is one of the accelerated depreciation methods A higher expense is incurred in the early years and a lower expense in the later years of the asset's useful life. So, in the sum of the years digit depreciation method, the remaining life of an asset is divided by the sum of the years and then multiplied by depreciating base to determine the depreciation expense. The depreciation formula for the sum of the years digit method is depreciation expense equals times remaining life by sum of the years digit times cost salvage value. So I provide the example. Consider a piece of equipment that costs 25 pesos and has an estimated useful life of 8 years and zero salvage value. So to calculate the sum of the years digit depreciation set up a schedule. Depreciation base is a constant throughout years and it's calculated as follow as depreciation base equals cost time minus salvage value. So that's it. The depreciation base 25,000 minus 0 equals 25,000. So the remaining life is simply the remaining life of the asset. For example, at the beginning of the year, the asset has a remaining life of 8 years. The following year, the asset has a remaining life of 7 years, etc. So RL divided by SYD is remaining life divided by the sum of the years. In this example, the asset has a useful life of 8 years. Therefore, the sum of the years would be 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7 plus 8 equals 36 years. The remaining life in the beginning of 1 to 8, therefore the RMN divided by SYD equals 8 years divided by 36 is equal to 0.2. The RL divided by SYD number is multiplied by the depreciating base to determine the expense for the last for that year. The same is done for the following years. In the beginning of year 2, RL SYD would be 736 equals 0.1944 and 0.1944 times 25,000 equals 486 expense for the year 2. So the sum of the years digit or SYD method allows depreciation to be recorded based on a reverse scale of the total digits for the years of useful life, where YD equals N reflects the summation over the depreciable life of N years. N stands for useful life in years.
Sinking fund method. The sinking fund method is a depreciation method that considers not only the depreciation of an asset but also accumulation of funds to replace the asset at the end of its useful life. Under this method, a fixed sum of money is set aside and invested annually, such that the amount accumulated along with the interest earned will be sufficient to replace the asset at the end of its useful life. The example of sinking fund method is TechCrop purchases a high-end server for its data center at a cost of $20,000. The server has an expected useful life of 5 years and salvage value of $2,000 at the end of its useful life. TechCrop plans to use the sinking fund method of depreciation and expects an annual return of 6% on its sinking fund investment. Next is accumulated depreciation. Accumulated depreciation refers to the accumulated reduction in the value of an asset over time. When an asset is first purchased, it's typically assigned a value reflecting its experienced lifespan. gradually reducing over time. Accumulated depreciation is the total of the time depreciation to date. The example of accumulated depreciation. If a company purchased a piece of printing equipment for $100,000 and the accumulated depreciation is $35,000, then the net book value of printing equipment is $65,000. $100,000 minus $35,000 equals $65,000. Accumulated depreciation cannot exceed an asset's cost.